I don't know, it's crazy when I wake up so early in the morning. Like I was up at 2 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. There was a lot of energy going on and I could feel it in my arms. I could feel it through my alimentary canal. And at some point I was typing stuff and eventually, oh my gosh, I had to poop at 4 something in the morning. So I did whatever I had to do. And that's why I'm up so early, like so early, and just spitting out information and epiphanies about everything that I've been systematically posting on Facebook and understanding Project 2025. And I'm so glad that I learned about Project 2025 because I've seen snippets and just like, I don't say rumors, but yeah, stuff like, oh, wait till you see what they have planned for you in 2025. And I'm like, okay, whatever, another, doomsday thing, which, okay, I usually do entertain doomsday stuff, but I'm thinking like, oh, is another earthquake, no this, no that. So I wasn't really too concerned about that until someone in my Facebook was like, you need to understand Project 2025. And so that's when I really looked at it. I was like, oh my God, reacting like most people react when you come upon another truth that is in direct conflict of what you've known innately, even though I may have been like back and forth about conservative and liberal, there's still things that I hold within as far as programming that when introduced to something that conflicts with your programming, it's something to pick apart. It's a little jolting. And so when I read Project 2025, I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And then you hear people react to it. And so the last few days since I discovered Project 2025 is when I really just dove deep into it, because I think innately, actually, I know innately, it's what I've been talking about for the last 3 years. But again, I've been straddling both sides. I definitely understand the plight of those in the liberal world, and I understand the arguments in the conservative world. So how do you make room for both? Well, the system is just what the system has been trying to do since 1973, since 1980. And you still have to give allowances to both sides of the binary arguments and then learn how to merge those two together. But then also my information, understanding why they're guiding reproduction carefully, why they had Planned Parenthood, why the system is, trying to get basically, go towards a more conservative way of doing things. And then this whole thing about protection, oh my God, that's just another thing that I'm like, okay, protection. When I was out there doing whatever I do, I could have died in some situations. There's no one there to protect me. I either had to get away or strategize my survival and all this stuff. And I knew how to do that when I was younger, and I knew how to do that when I was in my 20s, being around crazy ass people or good people. And then I learned that in 30s and 40s, so I perfected my way of protecting myself. I never really had to use law enforcement in my 20s, 30s, 40s. I never got involved with law enforcement in 20s. I mean, I may have dated cops and dated DEA agents and all that, but I never wanted to break the law in my 20s, 30s, 40s, now my 50s, right? There was no reason for me to do that. The reason why I went to juvenile hall was shoplifting because I ran away. And so that was the only thing that I broke the law in. I never got involved with drugs, really, when you think about it, as far as the addiction, maybe except cigarettes, probably the only one. But I never got heavily involved in the drugs and the alcohol and using that as a way to alleviate pain and suffering. It was more recreational than it was as a self-medicating type of situation. So I never had to deal with actual aggressive addiction except for cigarettes. Okay, so luckily I figured out ways to protect myself. I looked around me and saw who was making mistakes and who wasn't. And I tried to find the smartest person in my circle of people and copy them, because I had no identity. So when you have no identity, you find the things that you were trained in finding. And that was the thing. I had a lot of discipline, a lot of academics, a lot of diverse experiences in my childhood because my mother and father were very much out there in the community, and I had religion as a background, Judaism. So I had a great foundation. And then it was then surviving my peers and not relying on protection except for like condoms and foam and all that when it comes to sexual reproduction. And so the fallacy or the illusions of protection in our society, yeah, you were never protected. Like I said, the system always comes in after the fact. When it comes to heart attacks and strokes, your illusion of protection is to go and try to stop it from happening again. Well, there's no fucking way you can do that. That's called resistance. That's called cures. That's called setting yourself up for something larger the next go around. So there is no such thing as protection in the medical, holistic, energy healing world when it comes to the actual patient. There's no such thing as protection when it comes to criminals. It's society protected from you as a person who's breaking down, as a person who's a criminal, as a person who is deteriorating. And you're going to see a lot more deterioration now with this climate change. Of course, you're seeing that. And people are getting respite from the diet suddenly, which means that they're not suffering and they're not dangerous to people. But you're also going to see with these elections how fucked people are in the heads about what they perceive their rights are and what they perceive they are entitled to. And that's going to be fucking insane. I mean, it already is now, just looking at all the reactions to Project 2025. But when I picked apart Project 2025, I'm like, oh, I know what they're doing. They are narrowing the channels. They are funneling children through very narrow channels, very conservative channels, which they need to do, absolutely. And there's zero tolerance. And so if you're breaking down immunologically, well, they'll give you something to expedite the process. And sometimes the climate must change and the people don't survive climate change and their lifestyle beliefs and they die suddenly. And that alleviates your friends and family and society from watching you break down and then watching you also become dangerous when you're breaking down. That's what the whole died suddenly world is. It's protecting the people around them from someone who could potentially be dangerous as they're breaking down. And when people are born into a deficient body, born into a world that is not tolerant to deficiencies, then that's kind of the outcome. That will be the outcome, is then an expeditious way to alleviate the pain and suffering and the breaking down process, and then protect society from those who are breaking down. And so, but then on top of that, there's those that are breaking down or not understanding what the system's trying to do, and their perceptions of then the next administration is going to come in and lay down the fucking law. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be fucking crazy. And so, I don't know who you are. Just hello, but I'm not talking to anyone and all that. So you have to understand the intention of the system. And that's why they're trying to guide reproduction, because children are the offspring of the suffering of the parents. Okay? And so what are you producing? And what are you forcing society to deal with? And what's going to happen is that if kids are not going into a nuclear family, and there is no father, and there's a mother who's not really there, what chance does that child have? And then you can see this child be out there doing whatever, unregulated, getting involved in drugs, alcohol, sex, get pregnant very early, and the system will then step in. Okay? The system will step in and alleviate the suffering in whatever manner that it's appropriate based upon the situation. And so that's how it's going to be, is that, and that's what's crazy, is that that's what we're going to be watching now. Okay? All right, so I'm just going to go from the bottom to the top. So that way you see how my train of thought has come from point A to point Z. Because you got to know that's why the system is trying to guide. And that's why I'm telling you, if you can not have kids, that would probably save you a lot of heartache, and you can take care of yourself and be responsible for yourself and have a little bit of freedom and not be stuck in the slavery of taking care of something. But if that is, I don't know. Your children are the offspring of the type of suffering you went through. And if your kids are acting out, exemplifying the type of suffering you went through, you need to bring in a professional and save yourself. The future regimes will be investigating all families when the children act in ways that are indicators of abuse. Now that the system has done the experiments, they know the signs to look for, and the Family First, or CPS, will be in your business, and even more so. Oh, you can only imagine what is going to happen once we have a new administration. Reconsider having a family, because the suffering you went through will manifest in your children. Someone needs to break the curse. Okay? Now, some of you know that you have cancer disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, and disease, and heart attacks and strokes and everything, and cancer, whatever, in your family, in your genetic line. You know your kids are going to get that, and you can't save them from that. Once they're out there doing what they do, you can't save them. You can only save yourself. So then they'll probably go and have a family and get involved in all the things that are out there, and they probably won't survive that tradition. Okay, they probably won't survive that tradition. So, but you can't do anything to save your kids. You can only save yourself if you even have the capacity to do that. So once you have kids, it's out of your hands now. Now the system must regulate the children, and even you if you're breaking down. And so if you now kind of see the future, and you can look at the past and look at the present and see the future, and you've made a decision that whatever you need to do, what you need to do, if you have kids, that's fine, but the system will be in your business 24/7. And sometimes the families are practicing unorthodox ways of raising children, and there's drugs involved and everything else involved, and there's other things involved, then yes, you'll see the system come in, and sometimes they'll make major decisions if you don't have any extended family to take care of your kids, if there's other things going on. So you really got to be careful now what you're putting out there, what you're doing, because the state will be involved at some point if your kids are manifesting behaviors that are unorthodox to the mainstream. And so remember now, with this next elections, okay, it's not going to be like it was before. And so when the same people who destroyed your town back in 2020 do it again, these are the same people that were radicalized and used as mercenaries and probably came from broken homes and were radicalized by the people around them. And hey, they're used as cannon fodder. But hey, if you don't have a purpose and you are raising a family of aggressive activists that want entitlements and are extreme on one end or the other, the system will use you. That's why you be very careful volunteering for the system, because they will use you, especially if you are so divisive and taking such a biased side. They will use you as cannon fodder. Believe me, I've been there, okay? So when the same people who destroyed your town back in 2020 do it again, remember the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, will govern the conduct of nations. So don't be a savior and be out there defending things, because the system will not know if you are friend or foe. Let law enforcement take the criminals and looters to jail, and then the book will be thrown at them. Remember that, and they will be institutionalized. But yes, they did use them back then to kind of break down society a little bit and redirect us from one situation to another. They were used as tools, and then they were let off and all that. And so now they are being given another chance. If they repeat what they did back in 2020, the new administration is not going to look kindly upon that. They used them for that situation to break down society. But now when this new regime comes in and you have the same people doing the same thing again, but this time they're not acting as mercenaries because no one's paying them, or maybe some are, I don't know. Maybe some will, I don't know, get paid to agitate people to get them to do things they would do anyways. Because if you're out there, you're intending to cause a ruckus. then you will be carted off to jail and you probably won't get out, and you'll be put away for a long ass time. And if you don't have anything in your background to keep you grounded, then yeah, you'll be institutionalized forever when you think about it. And so we are in the purification of America, and you will choose how purified you become and what will you do differently during this next phase of the war, because we are in a civil war. And anyone who is scared of the Heritage Foundation has a lot to hide in their background. If your background is clean and you are of pure spirit, you'll understand the intentions. At some point, all humans must get past the trauma of their history, regardless. Cultural history, childhood history, whatever. And start pursuing the future. And if you think running away from America is the answer, then that's no different than running away from your problems and your true self. And then who's going to protect you, right? Do you even know, when you go to a third world country, do you even know how to protect yourself in a third world country? All right? But there is such a thing as protection. But if you know how shit works here, you're better off in an area that you were raised in for years versus being in some place where it's a little bit chaotic and there's corruption in the government in third world countries and a lot of unpredictability in third world countries. But at least here, there's a better chance to survive a breakdown of society versus going into an unknown like a third world country. Because what happens here in America, when we have our own little breakdown, whatever that is, we'll have people that will be trained to regulate. But when you have some people being deported back to Mexico, back to wherever they came from, and you're an American sitting there representing America, you're in a dangerous situation. Dangerous situation. I wouldn't be in a third world country during this next phase. I wouldn't, but hey, do what you got to do. All right. And in reality, it takes a predator to know a predator. All right. Now, predator, I use the term loosely because anyone can be a predator based upon someone else's perception. But the system developed predators to see what they would do, and they can see the behaviors, what happens afterwards. They can see it in the kids. They can see it in the adults. And so, I mean, whatever Trump's background is, his 34 counts of felonies, okay. But he'll be the representation of whatever, and he'll draw out whatever the system wants him to draw out. And the people backing him need to have someone to represent things. They need to know who is out there and who's going to represent. So if you think they're hypocritical and they have a checkered background, well, that's how the system understands your checkered background, because they've been through it and they've seen it and they don't like it. I've had to deal with my own bullshit and my own upbringing, and then also my choices in life. And I had to come to terms and look at it, be like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, I see where this, and then I become, I don't know, aware. And then when you're aware of things, then you have the choice to either keep pursuing the same bullshit and then eventually go to jail when you get found out, or die from that lifestyle, or you redirect. But if you're not aware, then you'll keep doing what you do until somebody redirects you. I mean, what's that? The whole laws of motion. What's in motion stays in motion. What's at rest stays at rest. Okay? And so if you redirect something, then instead of going on this trajectory, you can redirect and go on a different trajectory and keep going until something redirects you. And so that's all the laws of motion. For every action is equal or opposite reaction. So it's all Newtonian, laws of motion when it comes to people's behaviors and belief systems. And so, but if you are resisting the Heritage Foundation, you have something to hide, and they will find out, because eventually you will act out your resistance, and you're going to see it during this next election. If you're not breaking the law, you have nothing to worry about. If you're not injecting yourself in wars you don't belong in, you have nothing to worry about. And if people are that sexualized to where they want absolution like abortion or birth control, maybe it's time to examine what people are doing, sexualizing the families to that extent that they must get abortions and birth control. Now, rape and incest are the only exceptions, right? So if you get raped or there's incest, then yeah, I can see why you would need abortion. Now, birth control, when you're giving your kid birth control at 12 years old, what the fuck is going on in that situation? And so if you think your girls are nothing more than just a sex slave, you will force her to get married off and have children, and she probably won't survive the family. And that's every family's choice, how they raise their children. And then this is what these girls are left with. But again, if these kids are learning stuff earlier than what they're supposed to, whatever that means, then the system will get involved. Okay? And so I don't know if they're even teaching any sexuality in school in this next conservative regime. I doubt it. I think they'll leave that to the family. And if the family doesn't teach their kids, then the kids are going to do what they do, and they'll get pregnant at 15, 14, 13. And that's how the system is going to depopulate, because the lack of awareness of how things are can be just as bad as being so aware. And so the system's like, well, you know what? You can't win either way when it comes to kids. You can't. And so it's the adults who have to find a way to save themselves, because the kids, either way, are going to be screwed, literally, by the awareness or lack thereof. And how much awareness and how much ignorance, and that's not for the system to determine. And so these kids will just, whatever the family is, these kids will turn into whatever, and they will have their, and so you just stay out of it, because there's nothing you can fucking do for any of these kids out there. Nothing. And so they will copy what their parents are doing. And if their parents are having a bunch of kids and how they sexualize, then yeah, it's done with. So you can't get involved. And if there's abuse going on, the system will get involved and take them out of the home and figure some stuff out. So the system is hammering down. And so understand what they're trying to do and protect yourself legally and physically and immunologically, whatever that means. We are entering into the purification of America, and the waterfalls are going to be crazy. And again, I have no choice in the matter, because Trump will be in office, and I have no issue with him or Biden, because they both played a role very well, and now it's time to assimilate to whatever new world it is. And so we had 4 years of Biden, and we had 4 years of Trump, we had 8 years of Obama, we had 8 years of Bush. Before that was like Clinton, and before that was somebody else and somebody else. Okay, so now you're going to see what we have produced during each of these regimes, and now it's time to become conservative. But you could be gay Republican, you could be an LGBT Republican, and you're not imposing your sexuality, and you're not calling so much attention to yourself that then it becomes all about your sexuality versus the actual issues that you're working with and what you're doing. You're not distracting people with your personal life. Okay? And so the system is going to be doing an overhaul, a major overhaul. And I can't blame them. I really can't. Because when you put somebody that is really, really disruptive into any kind of administration, it becomes about their personal life, not about whatever it is that they are doing in their job. And that's yeah, I guess that's not okay, huh? But see, here's the thing. I don't really care what people do. If the system says, okay, we're going to have all these different people, in high levels of government, there'll be all this diverse, colorful people, fine. I can deal with that. Whatever. Do your job, and I don't care. But then you have another administration that says, okay, no more of that. We're going to have this, this, and this. And okay, I can deal with that too. I don't care. All right? Ultimately, I'm going to have to follow the laws, pay my taxes, and self-regulate. And if I can't self-regulate, then the system has to come in and self-regulate and regulate me. And so that's how it works. So this is not a win or lose situation. This is pure survival. I've already gone through the stages of grief way back during the conspiracy world. Oh, let me tell you, when I first learned about Alex Jones stuff and what he was putting out there, I was like, oh my flipping God. And I was just so like, oh my God. I mean, it was crazy. This is back in 2011, 2012. I remember messaging everybody on my Facebook going like, I'm getting off of Facebook. Oh my God. The world's going to fucking end. I mean, I was flipping out. And so I've gone through the 3 stages of truth. Every single time a new truth came to surface, I had to go through the ridicule. Even myself being ridiculed by others when I put out my own truth. And of course, the violent opposition. I was angry. People were angry at me. Okay. And then finally accepting things for what they are, or accepting things as self-evident. And they will be at some point. But you're going to see now with this new administration, if that does come to pass, and I think it will, that people are going to be violently opposing stuff. Okay, people will be violently opposing stuff. And so that's when you have to get out of the public, because you could trigger people into whatever, and you don't want to be inadvertently triggering somebody to do violence against you because they don't like what you look like or what you represent or anything. That's why I'm very careful now mixing with diverse company, given what I say on Facebook, because I know how trigger people are out there, and I don't know their background. I don't know what their belief systems are. I can kind of fucking guess. And so I just kind of stay home and stay safe, and I don't cultivate resistance. I don't assume I'm going to turn everybody into a favor of me. No, I already know there's no way you can convert anyone to like you or hate you relative to what they think about you. So you just stay out of people's ways and let them figure it out for themselves. And so when I was watching this video from MSNBC and these two ladies, this is what clued me in about the whole protection thing and what their issue is. And they're like, oh gosh, all these protections that we have, civil rights and this and that, FDA, USDA, and I'm like, there's no such thing as protection. They're always medical, holistic, and law enforcement and whatever always comes in after the fact. So you either had to survive the situation or not. And if you survive the situation, then yeah, potentially you can survive the next one. But if you get protection, which is called a resistance against the next potential situation, then you're building a case for a bigger situation later on because you're in resistance. That's what all this resistance is about, is ballooning. Just like the whole student loan shit. They're giving out student loans and all this stuff, right? To everyone who wants to learn stuff. And I have student loans. And so they're given a reprieve on how much they charge. They do income replacement or income based. And so people are getting a little bit of relief from that, but there's still the principal and there's still all the interest. And so when you have, the Biden administration giving people a little bit of relief on that, but there's still that whole ballooning thing. And then eventually what's going to happen is that whole Biden administration resisting people paying, a flat amount based upon whatever it is they had. So I was paying, let's say right now I'm qualifying for $62 a month for my student loans. Before it was $124, but now through the SAVE plans, it's $62. But what's going to happen in the future is most likely is when they actually eradicate that, then it'll double, triple. So it could be like $400. It could be $200 to $400 a month. Well, I figure, down the road, I'll just pay it through a different way if it becomes to that. But right now, yeah, it's manageable, but then that's a resistance that's going to balloon and bite me in the ass later. When you get too comfortable with pain, with not having the pain and suffering of paying so much or being in pain so much, eventually shit's going to switch and you're going to be hit with so much all at once when the system switches. And that's kind of going on right now with people who are dealing with cancer disease and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. They've resisted the evolution with all their pills, power supplements, and detoxes, that eventually that situation in their body balloons up and then they don't survive the major energy conversion when you can't resist anymore. Now you got to pay the piper. And that's the same thing with the student loans. But there's ways around it, but you're going to have to scale down your spending, scale down your lifestyle, scale down stuff, and take a hit on your credit if you choose not to cripple your family with the debt that you owe. You're going to have to scale down everything else on the back end if the front end is not going to give you that allowance. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things going on that could be applicable to how resistance destroys, how resistance can actually cripple you and bankrupt you. So you have to understand how to work the fucking system and yourself and do it legally. And sometimes you're going to have to take a hit. And so those, yes, when the student loans, that SAVE plan, everything else gets eradicated, and they reconfigure it, well, a lot of people are going to be hit with some crazy shit, and they're not looking forward to it. But again, that's just like when you resist cancer, disease, and chronic illness, you'll eventually be hit with a larger issue, and it could be died suddenly. All right, so these two ladies were just like, oh my God, protection, protection, protection. Well, I said, stay home, stay safe. War gems, don't become a target. Defend your home. Be weather aware. Fight the wars in your own body, mind, and spirit. Why be weather aware? Because if they take away NOAA and you don't get all these alerts of tornadoes and hurricanes, then you got to know we're in climate change. And if you see clouds doing this and that, and you feel the weather doing this and that, and you see maybe certain things, what's going on, you may not get the alerts, but then you need to be aware of what's coming to pass. And I wouldn't be in the freaking Florida. I wouldn't be on any of the coasts. I wouldn't even be down in Texas. But again, people are. They think that this is only going to happen once and they'll survive it. Well, there is no guarantee if it's going to happen. If it happens once, twice, and you see Katrina washed away New Orleans, it's going to happen again, and even more so, and even more deadly. So there's no such thing as protection, right? You will either have the capability to protect yourself or not. The federal government is the backbone, and states are the organs and systems battling it out, and you as a cell must learn how to protect yourself with information and ways to react to your environment without dying from your environment. Police cannot protect you any more than a vaccine can protect you from too many antibodies. They produce antibodies. You can say, oh, those are protection. I guess. But if you can't release them, then they turn into the enemy. They convert into the enemy just like that. And that's what turbo cancers are, is when all your protection then becomes radicalized and they turn against you. So that's the thing about protection. Who's protecting from who? And how will the system flip that based upon the energy in the environment? So what could have protected you before in a slow frequency would actually reverse on you and become so numerous it protects people from you because you die suddenly. Instead of you breaking down systematically, all those antibodies will convert against you, and then you die suddenly, and so you're alleviating the system from having to treat you, and then you're potentially protecting the people around you from you breaking down. Okay? And so the police are there to see if a crime has been committed and to take the offenders to jail and gather evidence, and that's it. They're not standing post warding off criminals if you're inviting them into your world, right? You must be able to protect yourself. And so Project 2025 is dismantling the illusion of protection. And that is what these ladies are resisting against. They are losing their illusions of protection. People fight for their illusions and even die for them. Once the crime has been committed, the justice system will come in and exact justice once the case goes through the due process. If you are involved in a crime, what was your responsibility? Engaging in a situation ended up needing protection. And what did you invite into your body, mind, and spirit? That you must receive protection from your federal and state agencies. Defend your home, and some states have stand your ground. So if deadly force must happen, do what you need to do to protect your body, mind, and spirit, and it helps to be sober and clean. Okay? So when I called the FBI because I was getting death threats because of the J juice, I was in there and they interrogated me no different than they would have interrogated somebody that was making death threats because they want to see, what am I doing inviting resistance into my world? And so they're like, hey, you better be careful. Don't be giving people medical advice. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not trying to be a doctor. I say what I said, and they understood where I was coming from. I mean, I'm not a criminal per se. But they wanted to see why was I getting death threats? Okay, because I involved myself in something that I shouldn't got involved with, and that is trying to protect people from themselves, and you can't do that. And so that's not something you do. The system has to protect people from the people who are breaking down and protect people around them, and so that's the crazy thing. And so they don't want you making people dangerous by not having them get treated, because people who are untreated are dangerous. And that is a freaking revelation that I'm like, oh my freaking God, that is so true. Untreated people who don't know how to manage and release the demons, whatever, they become dangerous. So you have to make them get treated if they don't know how to release the demons, and you can't get involved. Okay? And so I realized this, and slowly and methodically, I've been transitioning away from helping people. I put shit out there because that's just a way of me releasing my own demons, but there's no fucking way I could say you could do what I'm doing. There's no no freaking way I could say that my stuff could help you, because some people are too far gone. So defend your home, and some states have stand your ground. So if deadly force must happen, do what you need to do to protect your body, your mind, and your spirit, and it helps to be clean and sober. Okay? And so the Americans, so then I'm keep feeding on this. So the American illusion of protection. politics, religion, and science protection was protecting society from you when you started breaking down. That's what protection is, okay? It's protecting people from you when you cannot handle life. Now look at your Facebook and the people who are so predatory against an enemy they can't see, but they will project onto you if you represent something they don't agree with. And people and cultures in the media are some people's scapegoats because they cannot handle their own body, mind, and spirit. So you see those who hate Israel, those who hate this and that and whatever. And, you know, when we're developing people who become so radicalized against you and who you represent, what's the system to do? Okay, sometimes the system has to go in and do deadly force and by defending themselves, and sometimes they just let the system do what they need to do because they've already seen what happens when we allow rampant procreation on bodies in deficit who have an intolerance and a discrimination against those who believe in one way or the other. And so again, I have no issue with Trump or Biden. They both are giving us some valuable fucking lessons. America is amazing. Oh my God. But you have to understand what America is trying to do. And so I will adapt and understand what the system is doing, and I will be responsible for my own protection and adaptation, and I already am. Being 100% clean and sober makes it easy. We were protected under the illusion someone would protect us, but that was never the case. We never had protection. We had to give off an air. We could fight our own battles and use deadly force when appropriate and not inject ourselves in diverse company that's in resistance to us and our beliefs. But no one was there to protect us. The system can take certain people off the streets after a crime was committed. So what are you doing inviting predators into your world? And why are you entertaining strangers, putting yourself in the position to be victimized by a person, place, or thing? I don't care how well you know people. You can never know somebody well enough to understand what they're capable of. Now you must understand, now you must be extremely careful who you engage with in the physical world, because once you voluntarily inject yourself into diverse company or get injected with diverse company, there is no protection, survive it or not. So when men get together, like my husband and all his friends, and he works in they all can handle each other. My husband is very capable. So I'm not worried about my husband, him hanging out with people that he knows or doesn't know, whatever. I'm not worried about it. But me as a woman, and with the views that I have to be actually more careful than my husband. So I have to be even more in tune with my environment, more in tune with who it is I interact with, more in tune with everything. Because women have always been the one to be controlled by a man or someone who doesn't like her if they're bigger than her. And let me tell you, if I had girls kick my ass because they didn't like what I said, they didn't like what I represented, they didn't like what I looked like. And so when you know that is also out there, then you don't want to hang out with anyone, much less people who could victimize you in some way or another. And so that's what once you survive something so aggressive, you'll either learn from your mistakes or repeat them and die because you never learned from your mistakes. That's what the Heritage Foundation is trying to teach the world, especially in America. Americans have been under the illusion of protection, and those days are over. All those agencies of protection never truly protected you. You just thought they did. They measured the parts per million. So the FDA, the EPA, the USDA, all that. They measure the parts per million of life. Because as you know, when you bring in life into your body is going to have to assimilate to it, develop antibodies. That's the whole fertility and antibody production thing. And then you have to release the demons and assimilate to your environment. But if you're not releasing the demons and you're stopped up in so many different places and you have other deficiencies and other allergies, then that life that you're eating, okay, that's more parts per million than what the average person can handle. Yeah, you're going to see people have allergic reactions, food poisoning, whatever, right? And so all of those agencies of protection never truly protected you. You just thought they did. They measured the parts per million and they had to figure out what was appropriate for the population at the time. And now we have so many humans who can't handle the air, food, and water, so those agencies don't work anymore. Why do you think we had all these different recalls? Because there was nuts in them, there was more life in them that was acceptable based upon whatever standards they put that changed. I mean, why do you think they have recalls in the drugs? Okay, eventually when you recall all the food because 99.99% of the population can't handle the air, food, and water, then these agencies don't even make a difference. It's not even worth having them. It's just waste of fucking money. What do? Recall all the food? What do? Recall all the drugs? No. Now it's either you figure it out or you don't. You starve yourself and eat your organic garden, or you figure out how to assimilate to the actual food supply with whatever parts per million of life is in them. And so most of you can't handle the air, food, and water because your kids are coming into this world so deficient and so intolerant and so allergic to everything. And so the agencies don't have any pull because once you foster a deficient population, they won't be able to handle even the illusions of protection anymore. They will accuse those agencies of said protection of lying because if the person was that deficient, nothing would help them. Obviously, look at your fucking Facebook. Nothing is helping these kids. So these kids are starving. They're gluten-free, sugar-free, salt-free, meat-free, milk-free. They're living on soy and air sandwiches. That's it. It's not even the illusions of help. You had to survive your environment or not. So you were just the indicator how deficient humans were becoming. The walls of illusions of protection are coming down. You were never protected again. You just had to fight a battle you thought you were protected from, but you were always fighting battles that you were truly never protected from. And those battles destroyed people. That's called died suddenly or dying from old age. Every single protection you entered into was just another battle you had to win and survive or not. And that includes politics, religion, and science. All right. So all the oncology, all the operations, just another battle that your body had to go through. It was not protection. Getting those implants was not protection. Getting an operation was not protection. It was giving you the illusion that doing something was going to help you with something, but now you just compounded the problem. You added another battle, another situation your body has to go through. All right, so illusions are the magic. All right, sleight of hand, sleight of speech, sleight of perception. So even the religions, oh, if you do my religion, you'll get salvation, you'll get absolution, you'll get protection, you'll get whatever. Okay, fine. But in reality, you had to learn really hard fucking lessons. I hope you survive this next civil war and learn all the lessons from the last 7 years and even more so the last 3 years. Break the spells or die from the curses. And politics, religion, and all the therapies and the sciences are the biggest slates of spells and slates of speech, giving people false perceptions of protection. And then when you have cyborgs in the future, because it's not protection from those machines you are receiving, it is industrial composites reacting to your brain. Sometimes it's metal, sometimes it's a pacemaker, sometimes it's silicon, sometimes it's who knows what. So my world is about self-preservation, realizing you only had you and the food supply, and that was it. Your government was there to keep the infrastructure going, but it was only you that could rely on you, and if you couldn't rely on you, somebody else would have to take you down systematically and call it protection. They're protecting the world from you. That's exactly what the medical holistic energy healing world is. Not protecting the person who's taking all the remedies. They're protecting the people around them from that person who is dangerous as they're breaking down. Protection is all about the protecting people from the people who are deteriorating, and that's why the medical holistic energy healing world exists, to protect other people from you and your deficiencies. And that's what law enforcement does as well. They protect society from the predators who are found out after the fact. Which is why men wear condoms to protect the women from the antibodies, and why women use birth control to protect her from a large antibody called pregnancy. But those days are over. If women do not abstain or fail to use a condom or spermicide, abortion and birth control may not be available, and I do not know if spermicide is considered birth control in the eyes of the Heritage Foundation. Okay? I don't imagine some conservatives out there who were under the assumption that families were like so amazing would take kindly to this information, realizing that it's not. Conserve life. Sometimes when you conserve life, you would let it procreate itself out of existence. That's called the family. And so, this is about defaults and loans. Okay, whatever. You'll figure that out as far as the student loan stuff. Some of you will figure it out. And so this is to all the men out there who like to intimidate women. And I've had a lot of men in the J world who were against my information intimidate me through email, intimidate me through private message, intimidate me through even being a troll on my account. And that's a lot of our societies, a lot of men out there who like to intimidate women and intimidate anyone who they don't agree with. And those days are also over. Men and women who, not government trolls, but actual men and women who serve to intimidate others by crossing boundaries with insults, need to find a different way to express themselves. But force converting people by injecting them with your belief system is not the way to go, because then you act like a vaccine with aggressive immunological information with intention to destroy and maim and hurt and develop an offspring called fear, intimidation, and even potentially trying to shut down everything. And so people who are against me think I'm hurting people and destroying their society, but what they're doing is exemplifying exactly what they're projecting on me by their behaviors. And so what people accuse others of is exactly what they're doing themselves, but even more so, because now they feel justified. And that's what it is that we're experiencing right now in the politics, religion, science. People are projecting what they're doing to everyone else by their accusations. And it's quite clear how deficient and how much our society has broken down by the politics, by the religions, by the science dogmas. And so what you do on Facebook shows exactly what you do at home and to the people around you. Do men not realize when they troll women, they aim to intimidate them and scare them, and they relish in that power of doing that? Do men not realize they do that purposely when they troll women? And if that is your way of gaining the upper hand, is trolling women, and you are a man, how can you call yourself a gentleman? And then what are you teaching your children? And so if you are a man and you like trolling women, you better check yourself. And then you can't say that you're trying to protect women or children or people when you are becoming the predator. I see a lot of people who are out there vigilantes trying to protect people from people that have done crimes, but they become a predator themselves, hunting other predators. It's called mutually assured destruction. And men who are used to gaining control over women in their family will have no problem doing that on Facebook to strangers as well as their own family and friends. And that's pretty scary, how many men have no problem trolling women and intimidating them with their challenges and even some of their comments on these women's pages. And I've had people say to me, oh, you should have an OnlyFans account. You need to go to OnlyFans. They're basically disparaging me. They're saying that, oh, Jillian, you're only good for is sex. You're only good for showing your body to strangers. And when you have people that make those kind of comments to you, they have no respect for you and they have no respect for women. And when women endure that kind of comments from people around them and from people on Facebook, that's your society. You produce that in your family. That's why the system is checking people. For years, women had to endure men shutting them up because she, according to him, does not know her place. And some of these men are extreme traditionalists, and they have no problem trying to shut women up on Facebook and anywhere else they can if they are allowed to do that. And if you are a woman and you've been shut up by your husband or boyfriend or anyone else, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you're not allowed to speak. But any man out there trying to shut me up, you know, I'm really fucking tired of men hurting women because they can't handle another thought process. I'm so tired of men shutting women up because they cannot handle that she has a fucking brain. And men who intimidate women are cowards. So you better knock it off. If you don't like what I say on Facebook and my Facebook Lives and you choose to tune in, don't try to intimidate me with your questions and your challenges and a certain aggressive presence. Because this is why we have Facebook, because if I were to say this to your face out there, you would hit me. You would fucking hit me. I know women get slapped out there by the men who don't like when they talk back or have a mind of their own. Domestic violence is huge out there, and a lot of men are intimidated by women who have a fucking brain, and she can't be controlled by him. That's why these men beat these women out there, because she finally wants to exert her independence, and he can't fucking handle it. And so that's why I don't say this to people's faces in public and in diverse company, because someone like that gentleman would hurt me. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of calling him a gentleman because I still believe he has some good in him, even though he has chosen to insult me. Remember, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. I refuse to sink as low as some of these people out there. So that's why I speak on Facebook. And I don't speak directly to people. I speak in general terms. You choose to tune in or you choose to take offense. Someone tried to insert an aggressive presence on one of my Facebook lives and chose to insult me. And of course, their Facebook profile is very intimidating and they mean it to be that way. And I will not be intimidated by the men who cannot handle another woman's thought process. And it was a legit profile. He seriously thought he had the license to intimidate me. Which is why trolls who make a living and relish intimidating people have anonymous Facebooks. So that way no one knows who they are and it could be a government person challenging people. I don't put it past some of these accounts that are obvious troll accounts. That could be a government person just antagonizing, getting something out of somebody. But when it's a legit profile of someone in the Southeast, Northwest, and they're married, they have kids, their profile is actually legit. And they think they have the right to intimidate somebody else. Well, you can only imagine what they do in their family. You can only imagine what they do in their society. It's fucking scary. And so that's pretty scary. That's the society we developed as we've allowed men and women to intimidate each other into shutting up because they cannot handle somebody else's mind. And that's fucking scary. However, there are potential arguments someone could throw at me if they wanted to challenge me. But Jillian, you choose to be intimidated by some man. And you were justifying not answering his questions by feeling threatened by him. If he didn't insult me, then maybe I might have ignored the question or answered it if it was appropriate to answer. But when you lead in with insults, you have just already degraded yourself and the situation, and you're showing how you would go if given the opportunity. I've had people question me all the time, but they do it politely, and I've answered their questions. Sometimes I choose not to because it's not relevant. But when you lead in with insults, you're showing just how low you would go if given the opportunity. And when it's that easy for people to insult somebody, you know, much less a stranger, that it's just as easy for you to hit somebody if given the opportunity. And then take it even further and further and further and further until somebody ends up actually killing the person. Sometimes that person aims to kill your spirit and shut you down. That's what a lot of these trolls do, is they aim to kill your spirit, and if given the opportunity, they would actually hurt you and kill you. I'm serious. That's how dangerous it is out there in the public. And so if you want to try to change society for the better, you do it on Facebook, and you don't inject yourself in other people's world, and you block and delete trolls who have absolutely no understanding of boundaries. And you don't insert yourself in diverse groups of people who already develop resistance against you and everything you represent. One more argument. But Jillian, you chose to have your Facebook open to the public, so you're going to have to deal with a certain amount of trolls. Yes, for any society to learn how to communicate, you must risk having to show that you have boundaries and teach people how not to go and attack someone who's different and then make them the example without belittling them to their face, without hunting them in retaliation. When people used to troll me, I used to go to their Facebook page and find an open thing and just do an angry face or say something. When someone trolls me, I don't even retaliate. I just block and delete, and I express my concern through my own Facebook. But I don't retaliate anymore, but I used to. And that's a major whoa. And so if we don't allow people to observe what happens when someone is attacked by a stranger, how can they even look at their own behaviors and what they do in their own community? If they don't see it, how can you fucking fix it if it's broken to you? So if you're okay with attacking strangers, then the system needs to know who you are, and they will regulate you in a different way when you finally cross boundaries in your community and in a physical way on somebody like a child or a woman or someone who doesn't look like you. And so what you do on Facebook and what you say on Facebook is exactly what you do to the people in your world you have access to. So you better be very careful of the kind of cards you're showing to everybody in the system and the system. All right, so there's that. Okay. And so the bottom line of the government is to decrease consumption in politics, religion, and science, and in your body, mind, and spirit. And they will put the squeeze on you in areas that you've already signed up for, like the student loan stuff. But they'll change the terms on you. But remember that the bottom line is decreasing consumption and your spending habits. All right. And so what are the marriage requirements for receive Social Security spouse benefits? Yes, spouses can receive Social Security benefits based on their spouse's work record if they meet certain requirements. And they're going to probably, with the Project 2025, they're probably going to raise the Social Security retirement age to get the full benefits to 67, which they already said they would do. No, to 69. from 67 to 69. And so if you're retired at 62, well, hopefully you can live off of that for the rest of your life until you die or whatever. All right, I'm not going to read this. Use your Facebook to say what you need to say without getting hit. All right? I'm not going to read this. No, they're not eliminating. Project 2025 is not eliminating Social Security. They're raising it from 67 to 69. And so Project 2025 is eradicating the nanny state. And so what they're aiming for is a couple, gay or straight, who are self-regulating, relatively self-regulating, and relatively self-sufficient. As soon as you bring a child into this world, or even an animal, the government will be in your business. 100%. And so, if you don't want the government in your business, don't have a kid, don't have an animal, and be a self-regulating person. No, not so much consumption, and learn how to guide your own life and process, and learn everything you can. But that's what the system is now gearing towards. So the people who are resisting what's going on with Project 2025, it's because they are elderly and they have all these entitlements that maybe will be redirected or reconfigured. They have children, so they don't want the government in their children's lives. Well, you're producing predators out there, so the government's going to have to get involved. Or you have cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and you need to be regulated by somebody. And so the only way you're not going to be affected by Project 2025 is if you don't insert yourself into situations that you're surrounded by people breaking down, protesting, and you don't try to regulate somebody else. You let the law enforcement and the government do what they have to do. You can't save anyone but yourself. Okay? I'm going to show it. All right. And so, yeah, that's what the prison system is for, is to regulate people who have kids that don't regulate themselves. And yeah, that's going to happen. All right. So, right. No such thing as protection. Death in prison is the only protection for humanity from those who are breaking down in body, mind, and spirit. Once you show signs you are breaking down, the system will have zero tolerance, and they will expedite the process instead of trying to keep you whole, because there's no way to do that if you can't keep yourself whole. And if you choose to have children, the system will control the process, and most likely the children will not survive the system, but they'll be trained for whatever years they have to serve the system. Some might get the luxury of redirecting if their family is fucking amazing, if they can handle it. But I can assure you, most people will not be able to do whatever I'm doing, not in their family. Having children also expedites the process of people breaking down faster and earlier, which is why the system will favor two adults who are married to each other or partners with no children and no one they're taking care of. Those two adults are ultimately self-sufficient, self-regulating, with no need for government or medical intervention. Okay? And so kids only have two choices in life: live and die in the prison of family, live and die in the prison and institutions. As you can see, children have zero choices. They literally are the slaves of our society. Adults have two choices: live and die in the prison and family and institutions, or live with a partner or by themselves who is just as self-regulating and self-sufficient as they are. All right, so we were able to see what it's like to live in both a liberal world and a conservative world. And of course, you need a combination of both, but more conservative than liberal. And so you keep your, well, here we go. You can be gay Republican and you can be a straight Republican, okay? But you keep all of your sexuality behind closed doors and make sure it's legal. And death and prison is the only way to protect society from those who are breaking down. And so, I'm not going to go into that too much. You can read that. Okay. The liberals were trying to protect man from the antibody called sperm baby using condoms foam, but still encourage his aggressive sexual nature without producing children. The conservatives were trying to destroy the woman with the sperm baby, but encouraged nation building and families of petri dishes and develop innovation. The word protection is all relative to who and what you are protecting. Now you must see both sides. And so the system is done providing you with illusions of protection, and it will be zero tolerance. You either understand how to protect yourself or you become a headline in the local papers. The system can never protect people who can never protect themselves. They only forced you in situations that you either would survive or you would not survive. Okay? And so the only way to protect the children is for the system to advocate not having them or put them through narrow channels. And if they can't assimilate, they will be institutionalized and called the prison system. And once you get institutionalized, it's very difficult to get out of those institutions. You've seen the Shawshank Redemption. You've seen some of these prison movies. People essentially become slaves of the system because the parents do not understand how to regulate themselves or their own children. All right, so my background, I had a lot of academics and everything else. I had a very interesting background. And so they wanted to see what happens when you give them an amazing background like academics and discipline and regulation and not being influenced by your peers. And then finally go out there and see what you would do once given the choices and the freedom, right? Where would you go? Would you go into the criminal world, criminal underworld, and become an OnlyFans, Instagram, and whatever else? Or would you find a different way? And that's essentially, what I was, what I was given was that opportunity to evolve because I had the foundation, had the proper foundation. And so if you have kids, when they're all stuck in pleasure and paradise and video games, yeah, they'll constantly be reacting. They won't have the evolution. So it'll be done. Let me see. All right, so I'm going to read this and that's it. To all the anti-vaxxers holding their loved ones hostage by not getting them medical attention, their suffering might be dangerous to you, and you could never save them. All medical holistic is about protecting caregivers from the suffering of their charges. People who are breaking down can be extremely dangerous to themselves and society. But I would not be the one to say your herbs and extracts will save anyone. Call in a professional and let them handle it. All around, we have assumed medical and holistic was about protecting the patient. Nope, it was protecting those around the patients. And so the less people you entertain who are breaking down, the safer you might be in the long run. And you're going to find during these elections how fucked people are in the head, and you have to get out of the public because society will break down around the elections. People's perceptions of what they think their rights are so skewed, there's no freaking way you can knock sense into anyone. The Butler County Sheriff told you we are in a bad way. We are in a very bad way. And so I finally figured out what was bugging me so much about the medical and holistic system and all the professionals with licenses selling you protection. But what the fuck were they protecting you from? Themselves. If you're in the medical industry, you're breaking down and you're selling the protection, protecting other people from you and other people like you. And that's pretty much what the medical holistic industry is. It's not only taking down the professionals through all of their remedies and surgeries and perceptions of protection, but they're also selling you herbs and extracts to take you down systematically, protecting those around them from that patient's behavior. And so you saw what I went through as far as dealing with pain and suffering. And you saw how I channeled my pain and suffering. I didn't go after anyone. I didn't hunt anyone. I didn't really troll anyone. I reacted to people, yes, until finally I was able to release the demons and not react to people. But I didn't treat myself because I knew how to release the demons. But if you don't know how to release the fucking demons, then you're going to have to be treated and you'll be taken down systematically. And the people around you have to be protected from you breaking down. And so people who are breaking down are in politics. They're in activism. They're in the religions. They're in the science dogmas. They're in the holistic world, energy healing world. They're smoking their pot. They're drinking their alcohol. They're doing whatever they can to distract themselves from the suffering. And that's how the system has channeled their energy so they don't become dangerous to people around them until they can't even handle their life of distraction. There's nothing now in the world that they live in that can alleviate their pain and suffering until the system comes in. And then it's palliative care, it's hospice, it's died suddenly. That was the protection for the people around those who are breaking down, is to die suddenly. And that's kind of this situation. So all the VACCINESs was developing life to control the life. But there also had to be a lot of environmental changes and economical changes and political changes to support that process of managing people who are breaking down, and then finding a way to let people know that you can't get involved with people's breakdown process because they could be dangerous. And they are. Let the professionals, the policemen, those in the hospital system, take down those who are breaking down, who would be dangerous to everyone around in their society. And so with these elections, you stay out of the public. You don't gloat. You don't protest if you don't have to. But people think they have to, so whatever. And you just take care of yourself, stay home and stay safe. And deal with your own bullshit. Because I truly believe Trump is going to get in office. Because if they had somebody like an Obama, they would have already put him out there already. He would have been already campaigning. He would have been the savior, right, to the left wing. No. They still have, they're talking about Biden and like, oh, you should step down and put, it's all rhetoric. And so we're going to have a Trump, we're going to have the Heritage Foundation, and we're in for some shit. And I really have no problem with it. And that's why I've stayed home the last 3 years. Because innately I knew how dangerous our society was going to be during this pandemic and during these political changes. Remember, you had 4 years of Biden and people were doing whatever the hell they want. You had the liberals do whatever. And you saw what it was like to have a liberal run society, and people were at each other's throats. Major resistance. Now you're going to see what's going to happen when you have conservatives. And that's probably ultimately where it's going to be. And then the cream will rise to the top, the shaft will go to the bottom, and you will choose how that's going to be for you. And ultimately, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to survive this. So that's why I'm done with trying to save people. I just put stuff out there, make my observations, so that way you make a choice for yourself. But now I realize that's what the medical holistic industry is. It's for protecting the people around those who are breaking down, who are dangerous. And that's crazy when people who are taking their herbs and extracts and supplements and detoxes and operations and all that, how do you call them dangerous? Because they're breaking down. If they're driving and they have a heart attack or a stroke, they're dangerous. If they're under the influence, they're dangerous. If they have mental breakdowns, they're dangerous. When they're an activist hunting for a demon, hunting for, Satan or something, they're fucking dangerous. When they project that you're Satan because of something that you said, they're dangerous. So I don't mix in with diverse company. Because people who don't like you are fucking dangerous. And if they're not like literally dangerous, then they'll take shots at you and say they're just fucking kidding. Yeah, done with that. All right, that's it. Bye.